Welcome to the Screen MDM Talks podcast hosted by me, Manju Daswani. This week our sponsor is MD Media Biz. Hello, welcome to the Screen MDM Talks podcast. I am especially excited to be talking to someone who I've been talking to for years now about the All3Media story in Asia. It's Sabrina Duguet, who I know many of you know from her years of building just an astonishing business for All3Media across the region. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon,
Evening, whatever time it is for
evening, whatever, middle of the night actually for you.
Sabrina, there's so much that I want to get into with you, but I saw a snippet today from my old friend and mentor, Janine Stein from Content Asia, about All3Media having the best year ever in Asia. So I want to get into that. But first, we have to talk about the Traitors. What a story you have had with that show. Absolutely unbelievable. Tell me about sort of what the early traction in India has meant for your overall regional aspirations for this very buzzy, very powerful format brand.
Yes, well, obviously it is a talk of the moment, or even if that's 1 or 2 years, isn't it? But it's been a fantastic ride with the Traitors overall, worldwide. But in Asia, you're right, it started with India. Um, where the team there, so we obviously pitched it. I pitched it to everyone, and the team at Amazon really quickly, in fact, I name specifically Akriti and Prashant, fell in love with the brand, and they really saw how it could work incredibly well for the market. So we worked on it together for quite some time, and then allocated a production company and started doing the pre-production for it. And then, as you know, it launched in June, and I felt, and I've shared that with quite a lot of my friends and clients and partners in India, that there was quite a lot that was relying on Traitors at that time in India, because, as you know, there is a very successful reality show called Big Boss. Obviously, it's the local adaptation of Big Brother, which it's a huge phenomenon, right? And next to that, not a lot of reality show had worked incredibly well and had been
Yeah.
returning. Kind of the entire market or the entire audience felt, hey, we've got Big Boss. Why do we need another show? And so I felt there was a lot of pressure on Traitors to really make it mark. And it's been fantastic to see the journey through the comments of the audience. Before the show launch, the
Mhm.
audience was like, oh, we've got Big Boss, and, what do we need something else? And then, the promo gets released, and then the first episode gets released. And Amazon did a fantastic planning around it, fantastic marketing plan. And we worked together with them to share how we've launched the show internationally, what has worked, what hasn't, and but they made the great call, which was to release 3 episodes on the first week, and they felt if people watch those three, they won't quit, and it's exactly what happened. As soon as the first 3 eps went out, um, it just generated such a fantastic buzz. And yeah, it ended up being a huge success. 12 days after the release of Ep 1, Amazon confirmed Series 2, which is obviously, the best proof that it did incredibly well. And it brought also a new audience to the platform. So it ticked a lot of boxes, I think, for them.
Yeah. Now, you and I have been knocking around this business for a while, both
Mm,
of us. And so we've seen great formats that didn't do as well as they could have done because they weren't adapted as well as they should
mm,
have been. I think your success has it's so much been about having the right partners, right? Like the people who executed on the brand
mm.
well. Tell me, what do you think the producers of the Indian version of this? I think it's a tricky show to adapt because you've got to meet a lot of weird sort of cultural sensibilities when you're dealing with trust and relationships. There's a lot happening there. Why do you think the India team sort of nailed it? What did they get so right that it clicked with audiences so quickly?
So you probably have heard me saying that we're so open to people adapting and localizing and over the years, and I still stand by that, don't get me wrong. But I would say the Traitors is probably the one format for which we feel very strongly about certain aspect that people have to follow. Because in a way, that's what has made the success of the show is the fact that the format is produced really differently,
Yeah.
and it's got this very core key structure to it that we know makes it work. But when any new producers tackle it, they really feel it's a bit daunting. Um, because just to give you an example, and probably one of the main aspects of it is that the producer has very little control when the game starts. And I
Mm,
always like to compare it to a sports event. Is that everybody know the rules, right? You've done your casting right. You've got the players, you've got the best players for the game. But when the moment that the time starts, you don't know what's going to happen, right? You just trust that the game is so good, that the rules are so good, that the players you put in are so good, and something magical will happen and the audience is going to love it, right? It's exactly the same for traders. And it's
mm,
fascinating, to hear sometimes some comments online from some viewers saying, oh, is this scripted? Is this? And it's not, there is absolutely nothing that we don't even ask people to redo a take, right? This is how much hands off it is. And so that feels really scary for producers because you're like, oh, there is no safety net. Right? Your best player can be eliminated in the first round because that's the game. But that's also the beauty of it is that anything can happen at any point in time. So
yeah.
we really work with the producers on that. So that's maybe, I don't know, I've started by saying, well, we don't change, but now within that beautiful structure, I remember there was a review that says, there's a lot of masala added to it. And it's that, it feels deeply Indian.
Yeah.
Um, when you look at it, you're like, this is a great Indian reality show. Obviously the host being fantastic, the location being iconic and incredibly beautiful. You
Mm,
have these fantastic outfits from Karen, from the host that also brings on really that Indian
yeah.
Bollywood glamour and then the cast. If I have to say maybe one aspect of the adaptation that is deeply Indian is the cast. Um, Internationally we've done versions with normal people, with celebrities, but theirs is a celebrity version, but a fantastic casting that was appropriate for India, for the platform. So a lot of also influencers, so
Mm,
celebrities, but celebrities that have an audience in a specific, sometime niche or a specific aspect of a hobby or something. And
yeah.
that really worked incredibly well. The casting was incredible. And they also adapted the mission. So obviously the missions, we have one big one per episode. We have hundreds that we've done internationally.
Mm,
We provide all of them for people who adapt them, and then we discuss what maybe they should use depending on the cultural and preferences and dynamic in the cast. And then so they also pick things that are would work really well in India, but for example, you would not see some of them working at all in the UK, right? But that's where the knowledge of the producer comes in, and again, to how do you make that great format but as local as possible?
sure. Let's stick with
Mm.
India. And I know India, you also have an amazing scripted format story. And I will get to that because it is a stunning story. But I want to stick with entertainment for a bit in India. Obviously, it's a lot of platforms. It's a lot of platforms that are coming up with their own shows. I was watching
Mm.
a show with my brother and sister-in-law recently that looked like sort of an unsanctioned take on sort of like a Shark Tank, right? So the Indian platforms are very good at taking just sort of entertainment concepts and making their own shows as well. So tell me a little bit about just sort of the landscape for format acquisition in the very
Mm.
competitive entertainment format space in
Mm.
India.
Yeah, so I do think that the huge success of Traitors helped to prove to platforms that beyond scripted, there was a really strong market for unscripted and to diversify that offering, right? And that's something we saw internationally also on a lot of platforms. People bring new scripted series to bring new audience and realize, oh, actually, we also need to diversify and non-scripted show can be a fantastic option with
Mm,
that.
yeah.
So um, definitely there was a rise of interest for non-scripted after Traders. The other huge success we had this year was with Rise and Fall.
Mm-hmm.
It's a format from Studio Lambert. Channel 4 did it years ago. And the moment I saw the Channel 4 version, I felt really strongly that the show would do really well in India.
Huh.
Um, the concept was really would just I just felt strongly about it, right? I don't know how well you know the show, but it's
Mm.
basically you take a bunch of people, you split them into two. Some people are going to become the rulers, the bosses, and some people are going to become the workers, basically. And so the rulers live in this very fancy penthouse, while the workers live in a very simple, dirty basement with very, very limited facilities.
Mm.
And the game is that the rulers have to make the workers work as much as possible for the price point to grow.
Mm.
And you have a system where rulers can fall to the basement. And, obviously everybody wants to see people who rules and make decisions to then be working hard. And then you also have the other way around, which is the
Mm.
workers can basically rise to the top and become
Mm.
a ruler. And one person at the end of the series live with a pot of cash, and it's the person that one of the person who's the ruler. So
Wow.
it's a game, right? It's a reality show, but with a very strong social dynamic behind it, right? And something that is really relatable for most people.
Mm.
Um, and so on this
Mm.
one, I've talking to a lot of people about it, but the team at Vanijay, specifically MJ and Deepak, really saw what I saw in the format. And very early on, they really got that that would be a great adaptation for India. This one needed a lot more adaptation because while the core of the format was strong, it needed a lot more. So, for example, even in terms of duration, right, the show is 42 episodes in India. It was only, I think, 8 to 10 in the UK. So all of that had to be
Wow.
changed. But also, it reminded me why we do formats. I mean, it's also because you let somebody else make mistake and you learn from it. We learned a lot from what we did in the UK, things that worked, things that didn't,
Mm.
that we could then, bring in and say, hey, if you do it, you should do X, Y, Z differently than what we did. Anyway, the show was a commission for MX Player, Amazon MX Player, and has become their most successful series ever, the most watched series ever on the platform.
Remarkable.
And so that launched in September, so very recently. So I think it shows that there is a market, a strong market for non-scripted shows in India, and it's really exciting.
Yep. So now let's switch to scripted. I had a wonderful conversation with Min Lim at Double Vision
Hmm.
recently about the journey that she had with shows like The Bridge and obviously Laya, which she did for Malaysia, which and I mean the Laya story, the number of versions you have locked up worldwide for that format is stunning. So let's focus on Asia. Obviously, the scripted market has cooled a little bit over the last few years as everyone has cut back a little bit. But what are you seeing happen in your scripted format space? Is demand continuing? Are you seeing it increase now that people have less money for development costs? How are you seeing that shape out in the region? And why do you think your formats, UK dramas, have done so well being remade across the region?
Um, I think it started because there was, as you say, huge demand for drama in Asia, not enough writers, or writers that had maybe different skill sets, right? So maybe writing huge long telenovelas, but or movies, right? But not something in between, not that very different type of writing for an 8 to 10 part series, right? So I think it started by a demand. That's always how it starts, right? A new business trend. And then the truth is, you're right, the demand maybe overall has reduced a bit, but the need for strong, good script is still there. I mean, if I think of how long it takes our producers to write these fantastic thrillers, right? You're looking at months, sometimes years from the moment the first idea comes on the desk. So then it's just an
Mm.
amazing fast track, and especially for certain genre like thrillers that are so hard to write, right?
Yeah.
Like that you like it just makes sense. So while people are still producing and commissioning series, the market there is still a need for great
Yeah.
scripts. So obviously now it's maybe a bit more moderate because you also have great writers in the region that can take some. but it's just it's fast tracking, and it's getting your hand on sometimes big awarded scripts, and you can adapt them. So I think
Yeah,
the market is still there. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
absolutely.
you're right. We've done a huge business across Asia. We've adapted around 20 scripted formats across
Amazing.
Asia, which is great. Yeah.
I feel like I need to watch Step Dave because I don't know if you know this, but my life partner is 12 years younger than me, and honestly, I
Oh,
could do with some tips on how other women have dealt with that.
well, definitely have a look. You can
I
watch
mean,
all the episodes on Astro in Malaysia, but also on the All3Media website.
no, I love it. I feel like we need to do a version of Step Dave about my life. So now sticking with sticking with formats, I want to talk to you about branded entertainment. We got into this a little bit the last time we spoke, but branded entertainment is becoming much hotter everywhere. As you know, it's always been around in Asia.
Yeah,
Sometimes done well, sometimes not. Um,
yeah.
on the entertainment side, sort of where are you seeing opportunities to bring in sponsors to get perhaps some of the, the higher profile, perhaps more expensive properties made in Asia, as everyone tries to figure out how to do more with less right now?
Well, as you said, it's not something new. I mean, in certain part of the world, the concept of branded content is fairly new because it's merging two worlds that don't really normally talk in a lot of countries, right? The people commissioning has nothing to do with the brands. But in Asia, it's always been the case, or the case in a lot of the time. So at first, it's not something new. You're correct. But so I think what we try to do, and I think that applies to branded content, but also overall with the entire business,
Mhm.
is we just try to bring more value to the clients.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, it's not the easiest time worldwide.
Yeah.
And I feel during that time, our job is to just bring even more value than we've ever done. It's
Mm.
not good enough to just pitch a good idea because it's just not, right? I think what then will help you is to try to help at every different level. So it's not just a good idea, it's also how you're going to support the clients from the moment the pitch is done to the moment that the show is on air, and probably generally actually after, right? So through obviously all the
Mm.
production, um, all the marketing, we make a big point now of supporting more on the marketing side, even if it's giving example, as I mentioned earlier on with traders, on how other people have what they've done marketing wise. But
Mhm.
also on the branded side. So, we've got a team in London who specialize in all the brand partnership, program sponsorship, product placement, for that have been done on our brands, right? And then so it means that when we work with clients, we also, in addition to the normal format business, we can share, hey, you know what, on that brand we did it in Europe, maybe Pizza Hut or McDonald's or a car
Mhm.
brand has come on, and that's what they've done. So
Mm.
it's also make then the conversation easier with the brand here. It said, hey, your colleagues in Europe did this. Would you be interested? Right. So
Mm.
again, I think it's supporting through all of that. And I feel what I'm trying at the moment is to bridge that gap between the people who pitch the content and the brands, because sometimes there's a lot of
Mm.
layers in between. And I feel the closer the content people speak to the brand, the better it is.
Yeah.
And I think there has been a bit of a shift of, as you said, sometime in the past, it was not necessarily maybe done very nicely, where it
Mhm.
tends to be, as you want to show the brand as long as possible for, as large as possible. But I think people have now understood that what they want is an association with a strong brand, and ultimately a brand that is successful on the channel,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I think
Mm.
we've also tried to work with them closer to give people ideas about, okay, this is how you could integrate the brand to this specific title. So I don't know if I answer your question.
No, I think you did. I think you did. That was a good answer. Now let's leave entertainment for a bit. I do want to talk about finished tape, especially scripted. I've had a couple of conversations with people over the last week about that market in Asia becoming a little bit more challenging, especially as other Asian content has become so much more prominent. Thai, Chinese, Indian, etc., Korean, obviously, traveling really widely. So in a landscape of sort of diminished slots, as it were, for sort of premium, high-end UK scripted or European scripted in general, because you've got shows from everywhere. How are you sort of dealing with that landscape? And in that landscape, what is still popping? What are clients still coming to you for, even though they have so many other regional options now to also be taking content from?
I mean, you're 100% right. The local content and the national contents do really well in each territory and have increased quality and volume. And then the regional content across Asia work incredibly well. So the percentage of people, watching, let's say specifically UK dramas, it's true,
Mm.
has reduced compared to if you
Yeah.
look at 20 years ago, right? That's a fact. I think again, few things where I feel really lucky with All3Media is that we have first we've diversified all our content, right? So we're really lucky that we don't have to just rely on scripts on drama, UK
Mm.
drama, but we can also work with them on scripted format, right? Well, that's why we've done so many, also on non-scripted, etc. Right? So I think we've
Mm.
got that chance that we've diversified. But two, over the past several years, we've integrated within the All3Media group strong high-end drama companies. So while the clients have been more picky with what they're acquiring, we've also been able to match higher production, bigger budget, bigger cast series, right? So we've been able, I would say, to stay really relevant because we have just great content to offer. So you're right, it's maybe less volume in terms of
Mm.
number,
Yeah.
and people are a little bit more picky, but in a good way. So yeah, I think the demand is still there. And if you ask what specifically, I would say again thrillers. I suppose also because probably that's what we All3Media are known for in the drama space. But we do a lot of thrillers, detective, psychological series that do work really, really well.
Mm.
So I would say that's probably the series that have sold for us the most in the region.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and also sometime a bit of alternative content or like some family. We don't have a lot of family series, but we have a show called All Creatures Great and Small, and that's tap into if you want something cozy and comfy to balance these thrillers. That's also we've done really well um, with that show. It's a long running series, so that has done really well. And on the thriller, I suppose the series that I've done well is The Assassin, which just been released this year with obviously fantastic casting. So it ticks the box of great casting, Two Brothers Pictures production, just their name um, get a series sold. Fantastic script, great thriller, set in a fantastic, beautiful setting in Europe, by the
Mm.
in Greek islands. So yeah, I think you just then therefore need to be focused, knowing your market and knowing the channel that still attract that audience who want reliable, good, strong British series.
Right. I don't want
Mm.
to ignore your factual side because there's a lot there. And I'm just curious how you're seeing demand shape up over sort of the high end premium 1 to 2 parters versus this amazing volume of just sort of returning factual entertainment that you also have. How are you seeing that
Mm.
demand balance out across the region?
So the market has changed for sure also on that front. But
Yeah.
what remains is people still want uh, factual. So if we look at the type of factual content that works, always our natural history, animal related, all of that do really well. So, we have Silverback as a production company that joined the group a few years ago, and we released Parenthood, um, which is their latest natural history titles. So if we look at something like this, there is still need for fantastic natural history titles.
Yeah.
However, the you need to be creative in terms of how do you make the deals happen because it's not as easy as they used to be. All right, the broadcasters don't have the budget that maybe they used to have on those big factual series. So the team has worked really well to make sure that we did a lot more non-exclusive deals, partner up a lot of clients who could then share the cost of marketing. We provided local language. Then we took care of the dubbing, finding fantastic voiceover, for example. So again, it goes back to my point of bringing more value. So we sold to one client, but we could bring together different people for them to work on their windowing. We worked with them on, okay, let's find a great talent for you, and then do that for you.
Hmm.
So that's maybe
So
an example. And then lifestyle still does really well. So the right travel show, the right um, even on the animal, but more like pets that do really well. We have a series called Doghouse that travels quite well.
mm.
And I would say in Asia, something that always will resonate is what I would call kind of safe content. So, your history, a very good history documentary, because the public broadcaster always wants some. Um, so I would say that has worked really well. We've got a series that we're releasing for which we should be doing an announcement very soon, but called The Secret Life of Otters, and that was actually a special produce 100% in India. And it's a beautiful series, and that has done it really well for us in Asia, including we
Huh.
had a co-production partner in the region outside of India. So yeah, we'll be able to let you know really soon on this one.
Fantastic. Now, I had a wonderful conversation with Gary and Amanda a couple months ago about
Mm,
All3Media's fast channel business and sort of digital
yeah.
channel business. It was fascinating. I think what your company doing on that side is remarkable. And what Gary talked about was having a really close relationship with the distribution team to make sure that the value of the IP is being maximized across the value chain. And I'm just a little bit curious about the conversation that you're having with them on a regular basis about
Mm.
there are obviously lots of emerging fast channel opportunities in Asia with the broadcasters, with the Samsung TV Pluses and the LGs. How are you looking at that space from your vantage point in distribution, but knowing that you've got this amazing sister team as well that knows that fast channel space incredibly well? How are you looking at it in coordination with the rest of the fast team over there at All3?
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, we work very collaboratively. I think there's something true across the entire company. And ultimately, we always start from it has to start from the content, right? What is best for the content? And then so therefore we try to really see it as, okay, as a brand, what makes sense. And to your point earlier on about less demand for some of the content, maybe for linear channel, but there is then a market elsewhere in the region, right? We are lucky that we have volume, and that's obviously really helpful. Gary and Amanda's team have, for many years now, run a lot of channels, some single IP channels, some more genre-led
Mm,
channels. So we try to, my goal is to bring the expertise from Asia and say this is what we should focus on. This is what works in the region, or we think would work in the region, match
yeah.
with obviously the expertise of what works in fast and how can we run this in the region. So yes, we work
Mm,
obviously very collaboratively. I think the market is still fairly new
yeah.
in Asia. But to be honest, it was very new when Amanda and Gary opened that side of the business.
Yeah.
It was about getting there really, really early on, understanding what works, what doesn't, and then have that place, right? And then you can grow from that. So that's also what we're trying to do. We have a lot of partnerships of channels that we run across various part of the world, in the UK,
Yeah.
US. I mean, Australia, we do quite a lot also, and it
Yeah.
can be a good complement to the local partners. So what we've seen is sometimes the channel will run the latest series of a big brand, and then we then work with them and said, oh, what about then giving your audience who now know the brand a lot
Mm,
more, but through a fast channel.
yeah.
So that's something we've been doing with other partners, and that we are looking at doing the same in the region. Um, we've got also several conversations at the moment here.
Mm,
I would say something to keep in mind in Asia. It's obvious. It's fast. You need also volume to make it work, and therefore having local content, or at least maybe dubbed content or subtitle that this content is really important. So
Yeah.
it's also partnering up with the right people who believe in the content and can do some of that localization.
Sure. I feel like you're getting to the point where you could have like a liar fast channel with like every single version of that available. I would watch that constantly. Um Now, just to wrap up, you've been so generous with your time. Obviously it's a weird time in the business, as we all know. I think a lot of people are just facing some degree of uncertainty. What are the things that you're remaining focused on as you think about your business for 2026? What are your goals and priorities as we move into a new year in media, with, I'm sure, more weird big shifts to come? But what are your priorities as you make sure that audiences across Asia get really good content from All3Media International?
I, I'm going to try not to be too obvious here because that's the point, to try to, maybe bring you something a bit different. But it will always have to be, how do we serve better the client? And to
Yeah.
do that, we need two things. On one side, we need to know all the All3Media catalog as best as we can. And
Mm,
I get a lot of pride in making sure that myself, the entire team, know the catalog inside out.
mm,
Because behind each show that we have, there's been a producer who's worked a lot, put a lot of time and effort and heart into a content. So it's, how can we know the content as best as we can, and therefore match that with the second part of it, which is knowing the market as best as possible,
yeah.
right? It's about, I always see that as, for me, that's making that match between what the clients want, need, and what we have. I never
Mm,
saw our job as sales. It's more,
mm,
we've got great content. You need some content, if there's something that could match. And
right.
then this, surrounded by something that I mentioned earlier on today, which is, how do we then bring even more value to the clients in a time that is difficult, right?
Mm,
How can we answer more problems and find solutions for all these problems or challenges that the clients have? And I feel
yeah.
we've got a very supportive team in All3Media, with fantastic department that are there to support. And how can we use some of that to therefore benefit the clients we're working with on format, but also on finished tape, giving them access to talent. For example, recently, talking about bringing more to the clients. We brought in some talent in some shows, for example, right?
Mm,
We help with the promotion and making sure they have access to the talent. We bring sometimes some funding partners to some
mm,
of the projects. So it's that, is how can I bring more value um, to clients in the region.
right. Good stuff, Sabrina. Thank you, as always,
Thank
for
you.
taking your
Thank you,
time
Mensha,
with
for the
me. And
chat.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in person in Singapore very soon.
Very soon. Yes.
Very soon. Have a
Looking
good
forward
one.
to
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Screen MDM Talks podcast, hosted by me, Mantra Daswani. Kate Roach is our VP of Global Ad Sales and Business Development. Production was done by Anand Patel. Musical score performed and composed by Jahan Raymond.